There we go. We're live now. It's worked now. So yeah, apologies for that. We're just chatting all fine, and then suddenly it was like, yeah, let's go live, and then my internet decided to go down. So if it does drop out, I apologise. I will be back. I've got my laptop as a backup here, so we should be all right. But yeah. So welcome everyone. We're doing our Tequila versus Mezcal tasting tonight. I know there's quite a few people excited about this. Be a really good tasting. We've got the lovely Gaby with us today as well, who's going to be taking us through everything. And it'll be, so we've got some great stuff lined up, which is going to be fantastic. So I hope everyone's well. Hope everyone has enjoyed a bit more freedom again, which is good. If you do have any comments or anything, please do pop them in the comment box. Any questions I can put forward to Gaby as well. That's always great. We always like interaction with these tastings. So yeah. Just have a bit of water. Sadly, I'm not going to actually be drinking much tonight. I had a bit of a weekend where I wasn't very well, not COVID related, but I wasn't particularly well. So I've just got my spittoon with me today. So unfortunately, I won't be tasting them properly, but feel free to taste them. But obviously you guys taste them. And a few of them I have had before, so I am familiar with them. But yeah, so we just wait a few minutes to get everyone settled and in, and then we can get cracking with it. And yeah, I'll let Gaby introduce herself as well. Yeah. So,
you tell me when.
Oh, sorry, Gaby. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, okay. So hello, everybody. My name is Gaby Moncada. Well, Gabriela, but Gaby shorter, of course. And I am from Mexico, as my accent actually betrayed me. And I am from a state of Mexico called Jalisco. Jalisco has its capital city, which is called Guadalajara. And I am from Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. And I've been living in London for already a few years. I worked almost all my life here in London in the bar industry, and since a few years back, I moved to represent Mexican brands, which I love, and the ones that you're going to taste today. So hopefully everybody likes them, and yeah, change also the perspective. I think that's the most important thing for me. Change the perception of people. Not necessarily you don't have to love them now, but only so people understand how we did it and how much time and passion it takes to produce only one bottle of tequila blanco, and see them in a different way. For me, that is very important.
Yeah, I remember we've done a tequila tasting in the past, and I remember sort of talking to you about people's perceptions of tequila, and I, for one, was guilty of being a student and just thinking it was the worst thing I could ever have, it because it used to give me a terrible hangover.
Yeah.
But as I've started drinking more, and as I've come into the industry and drinking better tequilas and like finding different brands, it's honestly one of my favorite spirits. I think it's one of the best spirits for a cocktail, hands down. I think it works so many ways, and it's a bit of a shame that it kind of gets tarnished in the UK as being a slammer. And hopefully, you know, we're going to help people understand that, hey, it's a lot more than that. It's a really interesting spirit, and there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, I think.
Totally, but don't feel too guilty. In reality, that is a fashion to shoot it. Sadly, is obviously the way that other brands represent themselves to do volume. But and many people in so many places in the world do it with lime and salt. There is also a story about that. But yeah, it is an amazing spirit. People think that you get drunker if you drink tequila or mezcal. If you shoot it, of course, you're gonna get drunker, or the alcohol level will go kind of from I don't know, 0 to maybe 75 in your brain, and of course you'll feel it different. But whatever spirit people drink that way, it will actually do that in your body. And the other day I was talking with somebody. I'm not sure if you knew that. Remember, no, Van Gogh, the artist, the painter. he apparently used to drink a lot of absinthe, and absinthe now is illegal in the US already for a few years now. And people blame absinthe for Van Gogh's cutting his ear. But if you actually see the big picture, it's not the absinthe, it is actually the amount of absinthe he was drinking. So in reality, it's more about how we drink spirits than the actual spirit itself. So yeah, so don't worry.
Definitely. It's definitely one of those things I've realised over the past few years. And I think, it's like you say, it doesn't matter what spirit it is, it's how you drink that spirit, because you can,
Totally.
if you've got a cask strength whiskey that's at sort of 60%, that's probably, if you're drinking a lot of that compared to a couple of tequilas at a lower percentage, it won't be the tequila that's giving you the hangover. It'll be the whiskey, the cask strength whiskey.
And also, exactly, all the drinks that you had before the tequila, but then you shoot the tequila at the end and you remember tequila, and then somehow, yeah, tequila is the one to blame. Yeah. Well, but you're not the only one, don't worry.
Yeah, I'm glad I've got out of that now, but yeah, it used to be my nemesis when I was at uni. I used to really not like it. That and Sambuca, but that Sambuca's a whole different.
Yeah, no, it's true. Well, Sambuca is pure sugar. And yeah, totally different thing. But yeah, Sambuca was the drink to have. No, like you don't see it.
Yeah, people aren't as into it anymore, are they? Flaming Sambuca shots, but no shots around for tonight. I mean, if you do want to shot it, you are more than welcome to. But yeah, we're gonna be tasting some, and some of these are great sipping tequilas as well. So that'll be good. So should we get started?
Super. Yes, I'm gonna share my screen. If that's okay?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's check the light.
Roy, am I? I'm not sharing nothing yet, right?
I can share the stream.
I'll try again. Sorry.
Yep.
Apologies, I'm a bit slow with this. Okay. So the there we go. The talk today, we wanted to say that is tequila versus mezcal, but in reality is, in my opinion, is more like how what is the difference in between tequila and mezcal? How did we begin making? Yes.
Just a quick one. Your screen is your window, so it's not shared. The actual presentation.
Sorry. That's very strange.
Do you want me to? I'll remove that one.
Yes, thank you. Let me try again. Sorry about it. Why is this happening? Okay, I'll try again. The technology sometimes is great, sometimes it's not. Stop sharing. Okay, stop screen. Again, let me know again. Yeah?
So,
no, right?
No, so that's the thing.
Share the screen.
Should give you an option to share just your presentation window if it does that.
Entire screen, right?
Yes.
Let me see. Let me try again. That's what I've been doing, and I still no. What do you see?
So I can see us in the video. It might cause like a backlog if I put it on.
Again. No, it doesn't let me. No, you're in the show. Sorry about it. I'm gonna be able to share. Stop screen. I did it before, no?
Yes, you did. We were talking before, and it was perfect before, wasn't it? It should give you an option to share. It should bring up which window you want to share.
And I mean entire screen, right? I mean it's entire screen, window and Chrome. I mean entire.
If you go to window, I think it should give you. If you click on the window, it should give you the. Should show you which one.
Yeah, and I'm there.
The presentation. And then that's the.
This is the one that I want to share. Can you see it now?
I can see the files, like the window files. But if you're on that window, if you double click on one of the presentation, it might bring it up.
Yeah, I'm in there. Still nothing. Okay, I will do it again. Stop sharing. Ay, Dios santo.
Have you got PowerPoint open, the presentation?
Yes.
What give you?
Let me open it again anyway. Okay. Share screen. Window.
Yeah, there we go. That's it.
That's the one?
You're on it now. Yeah, we've got it.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Sorry about it, everybody. So today we are talking about Mescal and Tequila, and we will talk about a little bit of history and a little bit to understand what is agave, which is the raw material, and all those little bits and bobs that I think are very interesting to know, because agave spirits are special spirits that not many people actually put too much emphasis on understanding, but I think they are great. And as you can see, Tequila and Mezcal right now are taking already over the market, and people are appreciating a little bit more because they are super complex, interesting. They can be elegant, they can be rougher, they can be mixing cocktails and also drink straight up. So it's one of the most versatile spirits that you will ever taste. So agave spirits is actually what I want to call the presentation in reality. But what is an agave then? An agave is a beautiful plant that resembles to aloe vera but has nothing to do with it. It grows from Arizona all the way to Patagonia, but the biggest varieties of agaves, you'll find them in Mexico. When we talk about agaves, think as an agave like if it was a grape. And why do I say this? Well, there are several varieties of grapes, and each grape gives us different wine. And sometimes the same grape will grow in different regions of France or Italy, and then you taste it and you notice that the wine is totally different. Well, an agave is something very similar, but we produce more spirits than wines. Now, an agave takes us at least, so the fastest growing agave takes us at least 8 years to reach full maturity to give us enough sugars to produce alcohol. Okay? I don't know if you knew, but a grape will take 1 year to reach full maturity to give sugars. So again, we're talking about that agave took at least 8 seasons of each to then be who it is when it reaches full maturity. So the biggest varieties of agaves, you'll find them in Mexico. We think there are about 170 only in Mexico, and there are more than 200 agaves all over the world. Each agave is beautiful and different, and there are some that are super tall, some are shorter, some are wider, some are tighter, some develop spines, some others don't, some are yellow, green, blue, gray. There are different shapes, colors, everything. And you can actually tell me that you have seen agaves in either Africa, South Africa, Sri Lanka, India, Australia, in all the Mediterranean. And yes, of course, people fell in love with agaves, and now agaves grow in so many other places in the world. But that was because the agave was actually taken from the Americas, the continent, and it was brought to Europe. In fact, the name agave, which is its botanist name, was given by a botanist gentleman called Carl Linnaeus from Sweden, who was the one who studied taxonomy of plants and started to kind of put the plants in the real kind of taxonomy. Yeah. And what's happened was when this gentleman got presented the first agave that he saw in his life, he said, "You are so illustrious, so elegant, so beautiful. You must be called agave." And agave actually is the name of one princess from Greek mythology. And the princess was always sort of represent and described as that, as illustrious, elegant, beautiful. And when he saw it, he said, "Well, you're going to be called agave." And I think that's one of the most romantic things ever. No.
I didn't realize that's where the name came from. I knew quite a lot of plant names have come from.
Yeah, no, it's
places, but yeah, that's gorgeous.
I believe it's agave, and there is also another word which is a beautiful word, very similar to agave, which is called agape, and I believe that means love. So it's also beautiful, no? That it has so many connections there.
A spirit. That's what it is.
Yeah. The spirit is what it gives you as well. So let me explain you something that everybody should know and not many people know, and we still hear, I don't know, magazines of people, big people in the industry who really don't dig too much about the plants, but many people believe that agave is a cactus. Well, it is not. It is not a cactus at all. It has no DNA, nothing that it kind of make them sort of even closer. But many people might get confused because obviously Mexico has very big varieties of cactaceas. Well, this is not a cactus. This is another family member, and it has many family members which share similar DNA, however, are not the same DNA of a onion, artichoke, garlic, pineapple, palm tree, asparagus, or lily flower, but it's definitely not a cactus. Okay. For many, many years, we've been saying that it was the lily flower, the one that was super connected to agave because of the way that it flourishes, the way that it grows. But if you notice as well, it has a lot of resemble to a palm tree. And the way that it reproduces as well is similar to the onion and the garlic. It also looks, the center of the agave, it looks in between a pineapple and an artichoke. And the center of the agave, when it flourishes, when it reaches full maturity, the center, it looks like a huge asparagus.
Yeah, it's a really interesting plant. There's not obviously not many planted in the UK because it's not hot enough, but you sometimes find some in like botanical gardens and things like that. And I think it always surprises people when you see an agave and it's got like a big asparagus-like spear sticking out of it. People, you're like, that's what they make tequila. That's what tequila's made from. And I think.
Yeah, totally. And also, Hannah, I'm not sure if I ever mentioned to you this story that there are some agaves in Kew Gardens per se. There was the guys at Kew Gardens. You know, they are super fascinated about plants and everything, and they have a greenhouse right in the middle. And they began planting agaves, and the agaves were growing there because of the environment that they have created was very good for the plants. And one thing that people maybe don't realize is that when the agave reach full maturity, this stalk in the middle will start to grow from 0 to, in 2 weeks, it can grow 2 meters.
Wow.
So apparently when the gardeners or the people who look after the plants began noticing that the agaves in Kew Gardens, right in the middle, in the greenhouse, which is all glass ceiling, when they noticed the agave was growing the stalk, that we call in Spanish quiote, or in Mexican as well, they saw the quiote growing, and they sort of went to investigate, but they didn't put much attention. they didn't know that it was going to grow so much. So apparently one day they come back from one day to another one, and then the ceiling was broken because of the quiote. Apparently there are videos of that. So yeah, this is how something that we need to understand is one of so many ways how an agave reproduces. Once the agave flourish, the agave dies. So it's a monocot. It just flourishes once, and once it flourishes, it dies. But if it dies, obviously, then the heart, the center of the agave, which is the one that gives us the sugar to produce agave spirits, won't, the sugars are gone. They went with the quiote. They sort of give or the quiote kind of suck all the sugars out of the agave. The quiote grew, and then the agave is dead. So imagine after 8 years of looking after an agave, and then you just let the quiote grow, your agave die, and you cannot make either tequila or mezcal out of it. So yeah, it is important to look after the agaves as well once you are planning to produce agave spirits. So it's super, super weird. So some varieties of agaves give us a sap, and that sap in ancient times in Mexico was drink like if it was milk. They call it honey water. It was like agua miel, no, like something sweet coming out of a plant. So it was our vegan milk, let's say. And we used to drink it, and it was full of probiotic, minerals, vitamins. Also, if you put it on your skin, it's an antiseptic. If you let it to ferment, it becomes slightly alcoholic, and it's delicious. We call it pulque, and it is a magical plant. There is still some places in central Mexico, particularly, who still do that beverage, who actually collect the honey water out of the agave and produce beer of an agave that we call it pulque. And when we say beer of an agave, I should mention that is beer of the raw sap of an agave. So the agave wasn't treated at all. We only sort of capture the bucha from inside the heart of the agave, and then that bucha was let to ferment carefully, and then that beer obviously pulque becomes sort of a very natural beer. It cannot be pasteurized because then it doesn't taste the same. Obviously, you have to drink it in between from 0 to 3 days after being collected. So it's a beautiful tradition that Mexico still preserves. Another thing that agave gave us. Sorry, Hannah, you were gonna say something?
I just said it sounds quite nice. I thought it sounds quite refreshing. Really
yes, definitely. And then also they do infusions, chocolates, strawberries, passion fruit, weird different flavors. So you go to these places that are called pulquerias, where they produce these infusions, and apparently they're delicious as well. But again, it has to be fresh. If it's not fresh, it might be taste a little bit weird and everything. But once it's fresh, for me, if you ask me, it tastes like a silky, that's the texture, silky, but then the flavor was more like, almond milk or rice milk, this kind of thing. No? A bit milky, a bit silky, yeah, really delicious.
That sounds, yes.
Yeah. No, it's true. It sounds amazing, and yeah, I need to go to try many other flavors, definitely. So just for people to know, agave was so important for us that's why we learned already how to get milk out of the plant, beer out of the plant. We also use the leaves of the agave to as tiles for the roofs, because the agave leaves also develop certain wax, and it repels water. So once it's growing, the agave can also trap some water. It traps also CO2 during the day to do photosynthesis during the night if it's too hot. But also that same wax in the leaves is repellent to water. So people used to use those leaves as tiles for the roofs, so they don't have leakage inside of the houses. Some agaves developed spines, and the spines were used as, to do piercings, or as an arrowheads, or nails and or needles and thread for the fibers. I mean, it was super useful. Also, the agave, at certain time of the year, the agaves might, they sort of, there is a little larva that grows in there. And people notice that this larva obviously is clean, sort of. It's not a worm, it's a larva. And that's what you usually see in mezcales. If you ever see a mezcal with a worm, it's actually not a worm, it's a larva, which is different insect. And that's a delicatessen. They will let it dry, and they will might toast them, and then they might put some flavoring such as well, salt or chili salt or things like that. And anyway, here is a picture of me. I'm not sure if but I didn't look very happy eating it, but I was modeling because obviously the worm or the larva is very very small, so I was just posing for the picture. Then the quiote that I was talking about is how the agave used to reproduce. So once the agave grows and it reaches full maturity and it grows this plant called quiote, this stalk, the one that looks like a huge asparagus, and then eventually develops branches, and in the branches are seeds and eventually sprouts. That's how the agaves were reproducing themselves. Basically, hummingbirds, bees, bats used to go collect the seeds of the sprouts and then spread them around. I'm not sure if you ever heard about this sort of, there are many migrations in the Americas, for sure, in all over the world. But in between Mexico and United States, there are a lot of bats migration. And the bats were particularly the number one sort of pollinators of agaves. So they will fly during the night, pick up some sort of sprouts, and then spread them around, well, the Americas, but particularly in between Mexico, well, the whole of Mexico and US. And that plant also obviously is very strong. People will use it as a decoration. They will also use it as a beam. So per se, right at the center that looks like it's almost like a very strong bamboo was used in construction sites in the old school times, of course. And then the right at the center also, if you cook it, people can eat it. So it's very, it's more like a sugar cane sort of thing. And then, it's many people believe it's medicinal too, and the flowers can be eaten. So there is a lot of things that we can check out of the agave. Then the leaves of the agave produce so much fibers that people used to call it the green gold. And not many people are still using them, but in the old school times and nowadays, obviously, we try to preserve certain traditions. Sadly, it really takes a lot of time, money, and effort. But you can produce paper, clothing, shoes, or brushes, ropes, sacks, so many things out of only the fibers of the agave. Well,
a wonder plant.
Yeah, they used to send letters in between the Europeans who were settled in Mexico to the European or the Spanish kings, saying, and then there are letters that explain how interesting and how important that plant was for us as Mexicans, and they call it the plant of the wanderlust. So yeah, it was the number one plant, apart from corn. Of course, corn is super important for us. And agave was very, very important for us. And I'll keep explaining, but of course, Hannah, let me know if you have any question, or if you see any question that you think we should jump in and explain a little bit better. But something that we should know also is in Mexico, we spoke different languages. So when the Europeans arrived to Mexico in the late 1400s, we were not only the Mayans and the Aztecs, many people think. We were about 70 different civilizations. We spoke so many different languages, which many languages are still alive in Mexico, and they are considered languages, no dialects. And but the number one language that we all, as a kind of a Mesoamerica, as an Asian civilization, we all had to speak was the language of the Aztecs. And the reason was that the Aztecs were the dominating civilization in that moment in Mesoamerica. So we all have to kind of learn the language to communicate. And why do I say this? Well, because nowadays in the world, we all speak a little bit of the Aztec language. Why? Well, because many words or many fruits or vegetables or things that didn't exist once the Europeans arrived to Mesoamerica, and then eventually they brought it to Europe, those vegetables, fruits, and traditions sometimes, they will take the name of how they used to call them in the place of origin. I'll give you an example. Chocolate. So chocolate comes from the word chocolatl in Nahuatl, which is the language of the Aztecs. Another one can be chili or coyote, or, well, in this case, mezcal or Mexico. Well, there are the different things that we kind of keep the name just in order, well, kind of to make a reference that it comes from that area. And I'm assuming that that obviously applies to Incas. No? Now we have chia and we have many other products, but in Mexico, that was the one. So we used to call the agave metal, M-E-T-L, metal. And cooking the agave, the process of cooking the agave was ixcali. Well, we learned that not all agaves give us a sap, but if we cook the center of the agave, once we remove the leaves, the agaves are edible, like you will eat an artichoke. Okay, so we learned that if we cook the agave, if we do the process of metal ixcali, so cooking the agave, we will eat the heart of the agave. If we then crush the agave, we get honey. So obviously, again, another process that it gives us so much out of only one plant.
Yeah.
Well, let me see. So if we actually let that honey to ferment, we get a beer out of a cooked agave. And that beer tastes a little bit like a sour beer. It gets about to 8% of alcohol, and it's obviously pure agave sugar and a bit alcoholic, slightly alcoholic. Well, this is where distillation comes. This is how we start to make a spirit out of the beer of the agave. It is said that in the year 1200, the Europeans learned distillation thanks to the Arabs. So the Arabs already knew distillation thanks to so many other kind of crossover civilizations. And that was in 1200. The Europeans learned that,
Yeah.
and they learned to produce medicines. Anyway, long story short is this, the second pictures that you see on the screen are weird pot stills made by different materials, such as, well, in this one looks like more like a bamboo sort of thing, the other one more like a trunk of a tree, the other ones are more like a clay. Well, those sort of artifacts or very similar artifacts were found in Mexico, and people still say that Mexico didn't know distillation before the Europeans. But I just want to put something in clear. Mexico has civilizations dating 1200 before Christ, and they were great astronomers, engineers, architects, doctors, and I wonder why we didn't know distillation according to history. So, but well, what we can say is thanks to the Europeans, we learned the Arab way of distillation, and that is much more precision and using a lot of metals. And obviously, metals are much more durable than other materials to produce pot stills.
Yeah.
Anyway,
The beginning of distillation is something that is so hard to pinpoint in history, isn't it? Because
totally.
In the beginning of certain spirits, there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, no, it was the Belgians that did this. No, it's the Italians. No, actually, it was someone else." So, yeah, it's been around for a really long time. I think that's the thing to take away from it.
Of course, and we have a lot of relation also with Asian people, and apparently Asians were the ones, or the ones where they saw they have found many jars of distilled rice or distilled other fruits or vegetables. So they already knew distillation before many other people in the world. But I have some friends who are historians, and they based in history of spirits, and they said, sadly, if it's not written somewhere and it wasn't published somewhere, then so far we cannot check it as part of history. So right now it's just speculation. Sadly, that's how it works. Yeah. So but we can say that history is not written in stone. So there is a lot of things that we still yet to discover. So yeah. So now this map is a map of Mexico, and just to show you very quickly how I mean the shape of Mexico. Let's say if you can see. Well, you might have seen it already in another maps, but the size of Mexico is the size of 24 European countries. And obviously that make it pretty huge. So again, think about an agave as if it was a grape, but an agave takes us 8 years to reach full maturity, but 8 years at least, okay? So let's go for the fun part, and I will appreciate if you all have already your samples in front of you. And the first sample that we're gonna taste is a brand called the Rumbas Zacatecas.
First one is this one. The second.
Zacatecas. So I'll explain a little bit about the brand so we understand why we have given these weird names to the bottles. I mean, they sound weird for you, they are not for me. But basically Mexico is divided in states. We are 32 states, and one of those is called Zacatecas, okay, which is the one that we're tasting. So mezcal can be made right now, and I said right now because almost all Mexico was producing mezcal, but only 9 states of Mexico are allowed at this very moment to be called mezcal. The other states who produce mezcal and have been producing mezcal for many, many years cannot call it legally mezcal. So yeah, that's the story. So the one that we're tasting right now is from central Mexico, from a state just north from where tequila town or tequila spirit is produced. So again, the Rumbas Zacatecas. And this brand is super cool. It's beautiful. It's a collection of 6 different mezcales, and each mezcal comes from different state of Mexico, made by different people using different hot fields and different temperatures, using different agaves. So everything is different about them. It's all about the people and the place and the altitude. Everything is different about them. So let's try them all together. Hopefully you already have it in your glass. I'm gonna put myself as well a little bit so I remember all the flavors, because it's always fair to check. So it's all about people. Mezcal, when it's artisanal mezcal like this one, is all about the producer. The producer goes to the field, harvest the agave, and then go and do the production. And once you start the production, it's a job made of obviously again by hand, by people, but it's 24/7 once you start the production. So yeah, it requires a lot of effort. The brand owners are called Sergio, the one over here in blue shirt, and Esteban, which is the one in squares shirt. And they are beautiful souls. They travel all around Mexico, find these producers of mezcales, and then together they put together their heads. They go. I mean, the producer will call them and said, "Hey, Sergio, Esteban, I've got 100 liters to sell you." And they want to go and pick up the product, take it to their, well, I call it laboratory. It's a laboratory in reality, but it's a small place in Guadalajara city, which is the capital city of Jalisco, where they will filter the mezcal. They have to send samples to the Council Regulatory of Mezcal. Once we get the green light, we are allowed to bottle it, and obviously we get the permission. And this style of mezcal of the Rumbas is something similar to what we see now as vintage wine. So it wasn't touched, and it will be different every time. So we didn't even add much after distillation. So every time, check the bottle, what is the ABV, and it might be slightly different as well because it might be done in different time of the year, and sometimes it comes out in a higher ABV or things like that. So again, beautiful and untouched. And this is what people in Mexico are drinking right now. It's not, I mean, the producers. We didn't do nothing about it. So it's proudly their spirit, their product. And well, this is a quick map. The first one that we're tasting is right here. I'm not sure if Hannah, if you can see the arrow.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the state of Zacatecas. So Zacatecas is right. I mean, this particular mezcal is made around here, which is the south of Zacatecas, which basically is border to Jalisco state, where tequila comes from. So Zacatecas, they're kind of a greenish. The other one is more purple. But anyway, we will try today these two. Anyway, so we are here. So the producer obviously is a very proud producer of mezcal. He's been making mezcal kind of following the steps of his family for generations. And funny enough, he still using the same agave that grow in their area. And that agave is called Blue Tequila Weber. I'm not sure if you are all aware of what is that, what big deal is that, but basically tequila as a spirit is a mezcal that is made in different states of Mexico, but is only allowed to use one agave, and that agave is this particular Blue Tequila Weber. So why are we trying this? Well, because I want to show you how different it tastes a mezcal made with blue agave and a tequila, obviously, made with blue agave, but it's totally different style of production. So they are produced in Zacatecas, and the way that we produce it is we get the agave, we cook under the ground, we crush with a cajona, and then we distill it twice, and voila, what you have is a spirit, high ABV. In this case, I'm not sure if it's the same one that you have, Hannah, but my one is 48.85 alcohol per volume.
So we've got lot 3, and it is 43.7.
There you go.
Lot 3. But yeah, it's lovely. This, I really like it. It's got such a it's got quite a green herbaceous nose, but it smells like a bit like a kind of chili pepper, but without too much heat, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. And do you find any smokiness?
Yeah, but like it's that kind of like my favorite type of smoke, that kind of barbecue sort of style smoke, that sort of sweet.
Right. You know, Hannah, you just put one word that I usually put as well when I explain this particular expression. For me, like if it's meaty, but also has this barbecue-ish finish. And yes, it's herbal and everything. In fact, the color of the bottle is, or the kind of label of the bottle, try to represent what the brand owners thought about the spirit when they try it first. So yeah, wow. We're in the same tune.
I really like this.
Hopefully everybody have 2 glasses, so I can sort of, we can go back and forth with the 2 spirits. But the next one we're gonna taste is a mezcal, tequila. Let me explain a little bit what is the difference in between tequila and mezcal. Okay.
I'm gonna run and grab another glass because I have only got one, but I'll be 2 seconds. If you just carry on, I'll be 2 seconds. Sorry, guys.
See, of course I can wait.
I'm back.
Okay.
I couldn't find my boss I wanted.
No, I should have said that as well before, totally. So just for people to know what is the difference in between tequila and mezcal, well, I need to tell you a little story as well. But mezcal is, as I said, I mentioned before, is cooked agave. When the Europeans arrived, they fall in love with our distilled spirit of cooked agave, and they couldn't pronounce mezcal, so they began call it mezcal, and then now we call it mezcal. And what is that? Well, it was a cooked agave, and the agave get cooked in a pit fire. They basically dig a hole, they build a bonfire with wood from around the area. They then put rocks on top of the wood and the fire. The rocks start to get super hot. The fire then gets off. Then we will put the hearts of the agave. We will then cover those agaves with a blanket and then a lot of soil to keep the warmth inside. The agaves inside are not cooking with the fire. The fire is already gone. They are cooking with the heat inside. And because the agave itself is very moist, is sort of steaming up itself. But because there was wood, there is a combustion. And of course, the agave is also breathing that combustion. And that is why the agave is sort of grabbing these smoky notes. And that's why mezcales get smoking. For many, many years, we were making mezcales almost all over Mexico, but in central Mexico, we began using different technology, and this technology is more kind of industrial way. And that is because the Europeans fall in love so much with mezcal that they began introducing different ways of how to waste less. And that's, for me, what is industrialization. And in this case, they began cooking the agaves with steam. They basically build a room. The room will be filled with pipes that will inject steam in the room. The steam comes from a boiler that obviously gets powered up with wood as well, but the boiler will then cook the agave with steam. So the process was exactly the same, but Central Mexico was utilizing different way of cooking the agave. And then the mezcales that were made in Central Mexico were especially delicious and very popular at that time. But there was a particular town in Jalisco called Tequila, and that mezcal made in Tequila was super, super popular. They were using a particular agave, and well, long story short is that everybody was asking for the mezcal from Tequila. That is always, I mean, we're talking about the 1700s, eventually 1800s. And in the 1900s, Mexican government, and we're talking already about 1950, Mexican government realized that the word tequila, as rather than mezcal from tequila was only tequila, was being used for other countries to explain their own products. So I'll give you an example. Maybe Africa produces a liqueur made of a potato and they were calling it tequila. Maybe there was a vodka in Poland and they were calling it tequila. Maybe there was a grappa in Italy and they were using the word tequila. So Mexican government approached those other countries and is still approaching a lot of countries who use the word tequila or something similar to tequila because it's not correct. So the Mexican government said, sorry, guys, you cannot use the word tequila because tequila is made in Mexico. It's made with an agave. You are not even using an agave, so let it go. And the other countries replied to Mexico and said, no, Mexico, we know. I mean, we can use it if we want to. You don't have any rules over tequila. And that is when Mexico decided to protect tequila and do a denomination of origin, such as the one that is done for cognac to protect it, or to Armagnac, or to champagne. So we protect tequila as well. We remove the word mezcal, and so the mezcales that, so the tequila or mezcal from tequila will remove the word mezcal, and we decided to use only one agave, the agave which was from the region. And long story short is now we have a denomination of origin called tequila, but tequila is brother of mezcal. What's happened with mezcal? Well, mezcal, the other states that were producing mezcal are called mezcal, but sadly only 9 states are part of the denomination of origin, and only 9 states can legally call it mezcal. The other ones are agave spirits. So that's why today we're talking about agave spirits. But mezcal can use many agaves, all the agaves that grow in their denomination of origin, while tequila uses only one agave. Is that clear? Or sometimes I know that I talk a lot and I have a lot of information in my head. See, all good?
Yeah, it does make sense. I mean, it sounds like they were really cheeky, some of the other countries. It's like, like we all know champagne can only come from Champagne. That's where they make it. And it sounds like they were just, like tequila can only come from the state or the town of Tequila or the states that you mentioned that are legally now allowed to produce tequila, and the fact that there's other people sort of trying to trade off it and be like, hey, this is tequila, but it's not.
Totally. Yeah. Right now, actually, we are, as a Tequila and Mezcal, as a denominations of origin, because we both have the denomination, we are heavily regulated. And one of the most regulated spirits in the world, believe it or no. So yeah, we have our own council, nothing to do with the government, and we get visits from from the regulation councils, and then they go check as a surprise visit, and yeah, everything has to be in order.
Yeah, it's there's a question just come through. Which one are we supposed to be sampling? So the first one we sampled was the Rumbas, the Zacatecas. That's it. And then we're just going on to the next one now. But if you've still got a bit of your first one, hold on to it so we can do a comparison, the direct.
Exactly. So you can go back and forth and understand how different they can be. But thank you for the question. So now we're gonna go to tequila, and that tequila is called Don Fulano. Hopefully you already have a second glass and you can put it in the other glass. And let me explain you a little bit. Please begin tasting it, trying it, and try to understand what is in the flavors. What do you feel? You like it, you don't like it. There is so much to see. Just bear in mind that is slightly higher alcoholic than many other spirits or many other tequilas that you have tried before. 50 alcohol per volume. So just kind of drink responsibly, of course. So the first one is called then Don Fulano. Don Fulano is a beautiful brand that I love as well. I mean, I love all the brands that you're gonna taste today. I think you're gonna really understand so much about them, but also their integrity, their ethos, and the brand owners are beautiful people, truly. So yeah, hopefully you fall in love as well with them. But Don Fulano, what Don means? Mexican gentleman. And Fulano means unknown or undisclosed identity. And that is because the owners of this tequila called Don Fulano are sort of they're honoring all that people that we don't see that work behind the scenes to make these beautiful spirits. So hopefully we get to understand a little bit more about them. But it is made in the highlands of Jalisco. Just to give you an example, this is Jalisco state. Tequila can be made in 5 states, but 98% of the tequilas that are coming or that are come out of Mexico come from only one state called Jalisco. Many people buy also blue agave from the other 4 states, part of the denomination. In this case, this family grow their own agave. They've been growing agaves for several generations, for 5 generations already, and they were selling those agaves to big producers of tequila. But then eventually one of those big producers of tequila decided to put the price of the agave down, and this family, which is called Fonseca family, they knew that if they allowed that factory or that distillery to put the price down, many other small producers will have to follow their steps, because obviously they are one of the biggest producers of agaves in Mexico in tequila production. So what's happening is they were left with so much agave already harvested. Once they kind of they had that those agaves harvest, which I'm talking about the highlands of Jalisco, they heard that there was a distillery being on sale in the Tequila Valley, so in the town of Jalisco, a few miles away. So about 130 kilometers away from where they actually are, and 130 kilometers. Yeah. And they basically bought a distillery without knowing what was going to happen, and they began producing tequila. They always wanted to do it, but not necessarily that way. What's happened is many people who believe in the family began, well, helping or notably investing and asking them to produce tequila for them. They began making tequila and began winning a lot of awards. So they were obviously following their ethos, their points, their convictions about tequila and all. And they were using agave from the highlands, taking it to the Valley of Jalisco, which is something that they call it, the Valley of Jalisco, while the highlands is about 2,000 meters above the sea level. The valley is about 1,000 meters above the sea level. So totally different styles of tequila you might find from one area to another one. But in this case, the agave comes from the highlands to the valley, made in the Valley of Tequila. And voila, that's how they began making other tequilas. But then eventually they decided to produce Don Fulano Tequila. The creators are Enrique Fonseca and Sergio Mendoza. Enrique is the uncle of Sergio. And Sergio is a lovely, lovely man, which is also part of owner of the first brand that you taste.
Yeah.
And yes,
it's just got such a fantastic nose on it. It's quite tropical, this one.
Yes. It's delicious. Again, remember, it's a slightly higher ABV than normal, but it's so pure. It also has some notes of sweetness. It is super elegant. It's well done. It's rounded. It embraces you and then sort of let you go, but very gentle. It's not like in your face.
I'd say with this one, I think it took a little bit of time to come around, but it really is opened up, like really nicely.
You know what? I work for these brands, and sometimes I don't taste them as much as I should. And yeah, all the time that I go, I love to hear people what they think or their tasting notes and everything, because it's obviously it opens your mind again to remember how amazing these brands can be. But yeah, it's delicious. Yummy. It actually, I just put it a little bit in my mouth, and it has these agave notes. And when I say agave, it's very weird because obviously not many people have tasted ever an agave. But it's almost like if you have eaten a very ripe or more like a very roasted sort of root vegetable, such as a sweet potato or pumpkin, something like that. It's delicious. Yeah. Hope you're enjoying it. So having said that, this product and the previous product that you tried, they both made out of blue agave. And if you want to go back and forth to compare them, please do. And let me explain you a little bit more about this brand, just for you to understand. How do we produce tequila, in this case, Don Fulano? Well, we need a lot of manpower. We need a lot of effort. There is no machine that can do the harvesting. It has to be done by people. Okay? So you need a lot of you need a lot of sunshine, territory. You need the agave, you need the patient, and you need to look after it. Many people believe that you just plant the agave, you go to work in United States for 8 years, and then come back and harvest your agave. But no, you have to look after the agave. Remember, the quiote can grow and it kills your agave. So once people see that the quiote is growing, means that the agave is getting ripe. That agave needs to be, they sort of cut the quiote almost immediately, and then they have to harvest the agave in the next couple of weeks. You cannot just leave it there. So yeah, this is a plant that you have to look after it. Also, you have to look after that there is no a plague or something. You need to check all those kind of little things that can ruin your full process of agave production. So anyway, we harvest the agave in the highlands. We take it to the distillery in Tequila Town. We use blue agave, and this is a picture that I took myself over here. is where the agaves in the highlands grow, and this is how it looks like. And this was around May 2016 or something. Imagine, look, super high altitude, and it gets very cold as well. And then over here, up here, you can see how we cook the agave. So rather than having a brick oven, we actually have a sort of a pressure cooker. And many people think, oh yeah, pressure cooker is just very industrial. Well, this family don't even want to use the pressure cooker as they should. They actually cook the agaves very slowly. They have to vacuum some air out, and they go to certain atmosphere. But they don't actually just kind of a vacuum all out. They really want to slow cook the agaves. They want to do it kind of as slow and gentle as they can be. So yeah. The final product is what you have in your glass. It gets crushed, fermented, distilled, and then it comes out to about 55 alcohol per volume, something like that. They add a little bit of water. Water is always important to talk. This water comes from the Valley of Tequila. The Valley of Tequila used to be a volcano, so it's different style of water that you get from a volcano than what you get from another areas in the world, in Mexico in this case. So yeah, yes.
With the Valley of Tequila having the volcano there, I'm assuming that affects the soil going out into the rest of the state as well. So it affects the agave coming through. Does it make quite a difference? Do you get like a much, obviously with grapes, if you've ever had wines from the Canaries or places like that where it's really volcanic, or Sicily, they have this real kind of minerality driven, like driving through them. Do you find that with the tequilas from those particular areas tend to have a bit more of that kind of minerality kind of pushing through it?
That's an excellent question. Yes, the minerality, however, is different, but yes, definitely. So one of the main reasons why we sort of made an emphasis on the blue agave for tequila was because even tequila was actually made, or the mezcales made in tequila were made with different type of agaves. When we made a denomination of origin, we decided to only use one agave, and that was the blue agave. Why? Because the blue agave is native to all those places around where the tequila exploded. The tequila volcano exploded thousands of years ago, and the soil around it is different minerality than other places. And the agaves that were growing there were blue. And when they did the denomination of origin, they decided to use only that agave. The highlands of Jalisco, on the other hand, didn't have blue agave naturally. The highlands of Jalisco sort of introduced the blue agave. However, we're in the same state, it's very big as well. It's almost as big as the whole of England, not the UK, but England. It's pretty big. And yeah, some places have naturally blue agave, but the highlands have a blue agave introduced. And yeah, what's happened? The agave really catched up with the different minerality, but I will explain. The minerality that you get from a volcano is totally different to the minerality that you get from a different style of soil, because we're going to taste as soon another tequila, and you might notice how the minerality of that other tequila is much more expressive than this one. I feel that also water is important, and I feel that the water that comes out of the Tequila Valley is somehow sweeter, while the one from the other tequila is much more, again, sort of, even I will put the word spicy, but it's like, again, it's very, very mineral. So yeah, it's different kind of mineralities that we're talking about. But yes, you definitely will notice the different minerality, and you notice now as well that I'm gonna keep talking. So please compare them and all. I'm gonna just finish over here saying that this family, the Fonseca family, have won several prizes with Tequila Don Fulano as well, with the other tequilas that they produce. They own the largest collection and inventory of Asian tequilas in the industry. So they actually have other tequilas such as, well, they have normal tequila blanco at 40 alcohol per volume, reposado, añejo, and extrañejo. And something that you will see often in tequila is people use export bomb barrel. And I explain again a little bit further later on. But Tequila Don Fulano uses only or mostly all kind of ex wine or Armagnac or champagne or sherry, Napa Valley or New Balkan Oak. So they don't use any export on barrel. So on the contrary, they go for farther away, and they want wood that has been treated right. And because for them that's important for their tequilas. So just having said that, for people who don't know, when you have a denomination of origin, the spirit or wine, in this case, I mean, in other cases, or even produce, have to be bottled, in this case, in the place of origin. So you cannot send this type of tequila by bulk to other country to be bottled there to make it cheaper. No, these bottles come all the way from Mexico, and that's why agave spirits in general, and this includes also mezcal, shouldn't be cheap, and they are not cheap. It took us already 8 years to grow the agave, to do the production, to then, well, obviously put it in the bottle and send it to other countries. So again, good tequilas are not cheap. Something that everybody should know.
It's quite a labor-intensive thing to make. I think that's one thing people don't realize as well. Obviously, the plant itself, you have to cut all the leaves off it first. And I know there's quite a special way of them digging it out. But the agaves are, they're not sort of small, like little kind of things. They're big sort of pieces of fruit that, they need a lot of time and attention to kind of get them to where you want them to be. So yeah, I think basically just avoid cheap tequila wherever you can.
Exactly.
Probably not a pure agave in it. There might be some other stuff in there to make it a bit cheaper, but yeah.
Exactly. And again, when the tequila is not 100% made of an agave, they have another allowance. In the bottle, it doesn't say that it's 100% agave, and then that allowance is they can send the tequila by bulk, then be bottled in another country, in another port, and then sold in obviously a cheaper price. And again, it's totally different style of tequila. Oh yeah.
I don't know which one my favorite is out of those two. I thought the first one was my favorite, and then I had the second one, and I thought that was my favorite. So.
Yeah, I know. It's tough. Something that you guys all should know, that all the spirits that we're tasting today, as right now I'm clearly saying over here in Don Fulano, but this applies to everybody. We have these products, and they don't add any additives, nothing whatsoever. We are allowed to add additives to tequila and mezcal, different proportions, but those additives are often done or allowed because we are looking for kind of a consistency, no? We put the tequila in a wood, and perhaps we reuse that wood, and then the next batch, it won't be as dark, or it won't give us as much color or something. So that is why the laws allowed us to add additives. In this case, none of the spirits that you're tasting today have any additives at all. No glycerin, colorant, caramel, nothing whatsoever. So you're tasting the pure elixir of an agave.
The best.
So if it's okay for everybody, I would like to continue. Hopefully, now it will be kind of a faster, if it's okay for you. And again, hopefully everybody is okay with the tasting. Yeah, maybe I should have mentioned that you might want to have many glasses around so you don't drop any liquid, but everybody's different as well. But anyway, so the next one that we're tasting is called the Rumbas San Luis Potosi. So same brand as we tried before, but this is San Luis Potosi. This is more kind of a central Mexico. And just to give you a different idea, while Zacatecas was more kind of green as a state, it's much more green, and then their terrain, the terroir, is very similar to the one from Jalisco because they are so close, and also they were part of the explosion of the volcano of Tequila and all that minerality. Well, in this case, the Rumbas San Luis Potosi is totally different. These are high altitude plateaus of desert, and the desert is very chalky. In this desert, we have a big production, in this case, natural or wild production of agaves, and that particular agave is endemic to that area in central Mexico. The agave is called Salmiana crassispina, and it grows naturally. It grows wildly. So what's happened over here? How do we harvest wild agave? Well, the government give us an allowance on where to harvest. The government of Mexico knows where they have a big quantity of agaves. They allowed master distillers or maestros mezcaleros or producers of mezcal to go and harvest on those particular areas. And but knowing that there are several other areas in that state that are continuously kind of they are looked after, and there are more agaves growing. And in this case, this family harvest an agave called Salmiana crassispina, wild agave from the high plateau. And then rather than cooking the agave under the ground, they began using masonry ovens. And this is basically what I mentioned before, what is tequila as well. They began cooking the agave in a room that will inject steam. The room is kind of powered up, or the steam is powered up by a boiler. That boiler obviously has wood inside, but obviously the mezcal has no contact whatsoever with the combustion of the wood, like the other mezcales. So this is another kind of mezcal, but in this case, the mezcal is not smoky at all. It's using another agave, and well, it is amazing. Please give it a try. I think it's delicious. Just briefly, this is a picture of how the terrain looks in San Luis Potosi. This is how the agave look as well, Salmiana crassispina. We are in the state of San Luis Potosi, which is central Mexico, and we are kind of on the north part of the state. So again, kind of far away of what we tasted before, which was Zacatecas.
This one, I've had this one a few times before, and the thing that really that I always think with this one is it smells so like it comes out as quite grassy and very green, and it's got but tasting it in this lineup now, I getting that kind of like red bell pepper or like sweet red pepper note on there, and
totally.
then yeah, but it's got quite an earthy kind of character to it as well, which I think is really interesting. Kind of like earthy spices like cumin or something
right.
like that.
I mean, I never heard that one before. Let me give it a try as well. But yeah, for me as well, it's more like a green pepper. I'll say more like a jalapeno, but yeah, I think you are right to say as well, it's a bell pepper. I'll find this one to be, it has this sweet note, but almost like a flower. And many people actually think when I say flower, I think myself as well, that I used to say that about neutral spirits such as vodka or even gin, that there is flower, because the neutrality perhaps reminds us to a perfume. In this case, no. For me, it's more like a elderflower, a very green, vibrant flower that gives a lot of aroma. Yeah, and the cheese background is just amazing.
There is someone has mentioned it smells a bit cheesy.
Actually, this was the one that was cheesy, Hannah. I believe that the previous batch was perhaps made in another season. I'll say more like a heat, more like a summer season, while this might have been done in winter. Because this is totally my personal opinion. I never actually dig too much on which season was done, particularly the fermentation, because I feel that when fermentation is done naturally, well, you control it, but you don't control it, right? There is no actual temperature controller or nothing, and perhaps the master distillers know that it takes about 48 hours, and okay, in 48 hours I'm going to take it. But if it's too hot, the yeast sort of began working, but kind of faster, and eventually maybe you will get some other bacteria coming in the in the game, and then bring us those lactic and malolactic flavors, and that is why the other, according to me, that's why the other one was much more cheesy, and this is not cheesy.
Yeah, it's interesting how that can really affect it. I always find with rum that's where like the fermentation is actually such an important part for building flavor. And I think this as well, like, you know, you can, this where a lot of the flavor will come from as well, the fermentation of it. But because I'm assuming, are these the Rumbas, they are naturally fermented, are they? Do they add any yeast in to start fermentation off, or do they do it naturally?
Totally natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally natural. Yeah, it's beautiful. So if it's okay for you, let's go for the tequila then. In this case, it's not necessarily to compare, but it is to understand how different they can be, again, from agave to agave and different production. In this case, it's very similar production to how tequila is produced, but we are using a totally different kind of agave, and the agave grows in totally different terroir. So let's go for Tequila Tapatio. If you want to put yourself already the Tequila Tapatio while I talk, please, you are welcome. So Tequila Tapatio is a brand that was made in 1937, and right now the third generation of that same person still working in the distillery. So it's the same family, only the third generation. And when I say family, it's not only about the owners, it's also the people who keep working in the distillery. So it's amazing to see how even the person who harvests the agave is still there for many, many years already. His grandfather used to work there. So just briefly, they are, again, this is Tequila Town. They are not in Tequila Town in this case. They are in the highlands of Jalisco 100%. So they are 100% from Jalisco State in the highlands of Jalisco. They grow their own agaves. They don't buy from anybody else. And they produce their own tequila too. Just for you to know what Tapatio means, because obviously many people misunderstand the word, but Tapatio is also a sort of Aztec word, and that's how now people from the capital city of Jalisco, called Guadalajara, how we call ourselves. So I am a Tapatia, okay? So Tapatio is a person from Guadalajara. And when you see the bottle of Tapatio, you'll see two people dancing. They are dancing a sort of a typical dance of the capital of Jalisco. We call it the Jarabe Tapatio. You might have heard it in different sort of cartoons or movies, particularly in Speedy Gonzalez. If anybody's old enough like me to remember Speedy Gonzalez, they will have El Jarabe Tapatio sometimes in the cartoon. So very nice. So just briefly, just for you to know, guys, Jimador. You might have heard that name before, Jimador, because there is one tequila that give that name to their tequila in honor to the people who look after the agaves. So the guys who look after the agaves are called Jimadores, and they do one of the most important jobs, which is obviously look after the agave. They know when the agave is ripe, when it's ready, when it's super mature, when you have to harvest it, when it's sick, when it's not sick, when it's not ready. He knows everything. So yeah, he's a Jimador. That's how we call them. So Tequila Tapatio was established in 1937. The first generation, which was called Don Felipe Camarena, began making this tequila, sold it, also began selling the tequila in 1940s. And what you're tasting right now, the tequila is, I mean, as a recipe, hasn't changed much since then. So again, beautiful, old school style of tequila. Right now, we are in the third generation. So here is Carlos Camarena, which is owner and producer of Tequila Tapatio, together with his other sisters, are part owner of the company. They all work together as well. And they, well, particularly Carlos is being awarded one of the best master distillers and obviously connoisseurs. And well, he produced beautiful tequilas. And the way that we produce Tequila Tapatio, well, something important to know more than anything about Tequila Tapatio is that we look after our own agaves, we harvest them, but I want to show you here how the agave, how the minerality of the soil look like. This red soil means that the agave has a lot of iron, so it's a super fertile soil. And everything that grows around it and everything, you notice that it's totally different, no? It's important to know that when an agave grows in a high altitude, the nights are colder and the days are hotter than when it's lower altitude. And well, Tequila Tapatio cooks the agave in a brick oven. So again, it's a steamed room that will cook the agaves for about 2 days. And then, sorry, 2 days is, 2 days, 48 hours. And then we ferment naturally, like the Rumbas will do. The Rumbas don't add nothing. Well, Tapatio don't add nothing. We only add fibers from the agave. So the agave gets crushed. We use a tahona as well as a milling machine. The milling machine is very efficient. It sort of helps us to shred, squeeze, and separate fibers from the liquid. But the tahona, which is where we put only 20% of our cooked agave, is a volcanic rock that goes round and round and round, crush the agave, and give us this honey. We put the honey and a lot of fibers into the fermentation tank. Then we distill, and the first distillation, we will put a bunch of fibers again from the tahona, and second distillation is normal in copper pot still. So what you have is a beautiful style of tequila, and it's totally different to Don Fulano. So we shouldn't even compare them because they are so wonderful, and both have different characteristics. I mean, totally different styles. And yes,
this is one of my favorite tequilas. I think this, like, if you want to make a margarita, this is what you need. I've got a bottle downstairs that if I have margaritas, it's fantastic because it's just so clean and fresh. Like on the finish of it is just really. It's really pure. That's the word I would kind of say.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, just for you to know, this is distilled to about 50 alcohol per volume. They add a little bit of water, but the water is important again to mention because we add water from the highlands. It gets only filtered, but it's still, for sure, there is a lot of, another process which is osmosis, but the flavor of the water also gives flavor to the tequila. So if you notice, this tequila, the minerality is totally different and is sharp. It's almost like when you leave a glass of sparkling water on the side, you forget about it, and then you remember that, oh yeah, that was my glass. You drink it, and then you notice that it's still mineral, very mineral, but it doesn't have bubbles anymore. That's how, for me, is the minerality of the water from the highlands of Jalisco. So vibrant, spicy a bit, some sort of a kind of a chili maybe, and then there is of course a flavor of agave. For me, it's almost like as vibrant as when you bite a green apple, no? Like you bite it and it's sharp. It's so many flavors kind of going around, and then there is sweetness again, but then there is sharpness again. That's what I feel with Tequila Tapatio. I think it's beautiful and delicious.
It's got that real kind of like you say, like apple acidity, that kind of that sweet acidity that sort of coats around your mouth.
Exactly, and it's beautiful. I think, again, one of the best tequilas ever. So having said, talking about the prices and everything, just for you to know, this bottle comes in 50 cl. The bottle was designed for bartenders because if you notice, this tequila is in the best bars. I wouldn't say in the world yet because we are tiny, but at least in the UK, go to the best bars in the UK and you'll notice that they might have Tequila Tapatio. Maybe not a house, but it will be Tequila Tapatio there because it's beautiful, it's delicious. It's we don't pay anybody. We are there because people know about the tequila.
And it's always a bartender's favorite, the Tapatio.
Exactly.
If we get people who worked in bars coming in and they're buying sort of stuff for themselves, they usually will go for something for the Tapatio because they're so familiar with it, but they know it's so great as well.
Exactly. And then we also have reposado, añejo, extra añejo, which obviously are the sort of aging expressions. And we also have a higher ABV, overproof at 55 alcohol per volume, which is also beautiful. I myself wouldn't recommend it to drink it straight up. I will say more in cocktails.
Mhm.
On the other hand, this one that you're tasting right now, I drink it personally just straight up, and it goes excellent in cocktails as well. A chaser next to a beer is just beautiful.
Mm. 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 I just love that one. Yeah, I really like that. But the St. Louis as well I think is really interesting. Going back to that now, having had the Tapatio, without having that quite a little bit softer sort of character to it, you go back to it. The St. Louis all those quite bright green sort of pepper kind of characters really jump out of the glass on it.
Totally. I mean, but again, that's why it's super cool to kind of have these sort of comparisons. No, you notice how tequila is super different to a mezcal, and not only on ways of making. It's also about the agave. The agave gives so much flavor, and something that a very good friend of us mentioned one day is that when you are looking for a tequila, you shouldn't be looking for the smoother, the one that tastes more neutral or things like that, or the one that has been distilled for many, many times, because an agave took us already such a long time to grow. Obviously, what you want in a spirit is a agave forward tequila. You don't want it to be neutral. You don't want it to taste like a vodka. Drink vodka if you want vodka, no? So yeah, tequila has to taste like an agave because that's the raw material, and I think it's beautiful and delicious.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a bit like winemaking as well with that, in that, you know, if you've taken, you know, you've been looking after your vines, or say you've got old vines and they've got these really lovely concentrated flavors, to then go and put them in oak for, you know, in brand new oak, which is going to impact on the flavor heavily
and change. Yeah.
You know, you just think, well, why are you looking after the old vines, which are a lot of hard work to maintain, and then just ruining it by putting it in, you know, brand new oak? There's times and places for those things, I think.
Yeah, I agree totally.
Certainly, kind of doing, you know, measuring it and kind of approaching it as I think that's the thing, approaching sort of spirits and drinks as an actual physical kind of product of an actual like a plant. You know, you're taking it from a plant event, essentially. That's always an important thing, and it's always something to remember with them as well.
Yeah, totally. So let's continue, so I don't take too much of your time. We're almost running out of well, hopefully not running out of time, but more like we don't want to take much of your time. But let's go again to Tapatio, but now we're going to try their age expression. Which one? Reposado or añejo, Hannah?
The añejo.
Añejo. Okay, so in the picture is reposado, but you're trying añejo, ladies and gentlemen. So añejo is an expression of aging tequila. So first, tequila was the first 2 months of aging. We call it reposado. After 2 months, that's reposado. Sorry. After 1 year, we call it añejo. Let me tell you a little story about it. Apparently, when tequila and mezcal as well, of course, began to be super popular in Mexico while we were conquered. So we were called the New Spain, Nueva España. We call them. They call Mexico. They used to transport the tequila or the mezcal tequila from one place to another one. But obviously, at the beginning, the tequila was transported in vessels of glass or clay, and of course, it gets broken in the way, and you lose it. And we're talking about that perhaps from Guadalajara City was going to Mexico City, and it will take months to get there. What's happened is that apparently people began using barrels, those barrels that were brought all the way from Europe, bringing their own brandies and wines. So apparently people began putting tequila in those barrels and send the barrels filled with tequila from Guadalajara City to Mexico City. Apparently, when the barrels arrive to the cantinas, people get to the cantina, ask for a tequila, and the tequila comes out of the barrel. It comes out slightly yellowish, and then the customer asks the bartender, what's happened with my tequila? And the bartender answered, it got reposado, it got rested. And then, oh, wow. Since then on, tequila in Mexico, the kind of the most drunk tequila in Mexico is the expression of reposado. So mostly Mexico drinks more reposado than blanco or añejo or extrañejo. And obviously, if you leave your tequila a little bit longer, then become añejo, and also it becomes different. But as Hannah was saying, we don't want to change our tequila too much. We don't want the wood to overpower or kind of change us too much. So for the producers of Tequila Tapatio, in this case Carlos Camarena, he believed on putting the tequila for very little time in the wood that has been reused, used before for ex-bourbon, taken to the distillery, clean, and then we put the tequila there. For him, it's more about oxygenating the tequila after being distilled. And it's also about oxidating a little bit. And it's kind of a calming down the tequila in the barrel. Once the tequila spent about 1 year and 8 months in wood, in this case for añejo, we then put it in a stainless steel tank. We add water, and then we bottle it after a few months of obviously blending with the water. And this one is 38 alcohol per volume. Please, I hope you already put it on your glass. I think it's beautiful, delicious, amazing. And if you remember the previous Tapatio that you tried, this is so different. The perhaps vibrant notes of spiciness that you felt first in the first Tapatio are almost gone, and now are more sort of rounded and nutty notes. It's more about, for me, I always say that obviously it's not too strong, but I feel like almost like if there was a little bit of maple syrup, a little bit of walnut or something like that.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, on the nose, it's got this really lovely like you can really tell the impact of the wood. It's got a vanilla note, but it's not like really bold vanilla, if that makes sense. It's
totally, yeah.
It's quite subtle vanilla, but then you get all these nice, like a bit like sort of cinnamon off it, and almost a bit of chocolate.
Yes. And you know what, now that you mentioned about that, yes, the wood impact on the flavor and all, and the smell. When you are walking in between those barrels that are aging tequila, that's exactly the smell of the place, of the cellar. That's how I smell the whole cellar.
It still smells really fresh though.
Yeah. The agave is super present. So one thing that people should know is that many categories of spirits use ex-bourbon barrels, because bourbon as a category cannot reuse their barrels. So they produce the barrels, they use them once, and then they chuck them away, they sell it. And Scotch whiskey, rum, cachaça, in this case tequila, buy them. So it's pretty normal. And many people will recharge them, so re-toast them, and kind of put their spirits in there. In this case, Tapatio don't do that. We don't want the wood to take over. We want only the tequila to rest, to calm down.
No, it's really lovely. And the one thing that's that you can always tell, you said none of these spirits have any additives in it. When you look at the color of this in the bottle, it's so pale.
Yeah.
And when you think about kind of some of the older whiskeys, and in some of the older some of the other kind of aged tequilas and things like that, sometimes the color of them are so dark. I think there's a kind of thing, well, if it's darker in color, it must have been aged for longer, it must be better, which isn't true, because a lot of the time, it's been in barrel for over a year, and that's the color that it comes out of. Just because it's been in a barrel doesn't mean the color doesn't indicate that it's of a higher quality. So it's always good to see that. I think it's always a slight surprise when if you pull these up in a lineup of aged tequilas, and people kind of think, wow, that's really pale, that must not have, but it's a really lovely, well balanced way of aging it, I think.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Well, I'm glad. So let's go for the next one, which will be the mezcal. And this is just the last picture of Tapatio, just for you to recognize the bottles. So we tried Blanco and Añejo, but we have the Overproof, Reposado, and Extra Añejo. Extra Añejo comes in a 1 liter bottle. So if you see the price, obviously don't get too scared. It's obviously a tequila in a bigger presentation, and it's 4 years old tequilas in there with new white American oak, so it hasn't been used before. So again, an expression that is unique of its kind. So yeah, pretty cool. So let's go to the last one that we're tasting today. It's called Ilegal Mezcal. Ilegal Mezcal is a beautiful brand that I hope you like, that you understand a little bit with this talk, but it's not illegal, I'm afraid, just for you to know. But it is a brand that was produced. Well, there is a story. Let me tell you the little story. There is this guy that you see in the picture called John Rexer. He's from New York State, and he always wanted to go and travel around the world, particularly Latin America. Apparently, one day he decided to make his dream come true, and he began traveling around Mexico. He was driving his truck, and he arrived to Oaxaca, which is the southwestern state of Mexico. In Oaxaca, he fell in love with tequila and mezcal, and he was spending his time just by the beach, enjoying life. Apparently, one day he realized that his visa was about to expire, and that's when he decided to get out of the country to get a new stamp. But rather than going all the way north to the US again, he decided to go south to our border neighbor country, which is called Guatemala. Guatemala, he arrived to that picture that you see over there, that beautiful cobbled street in La Antigua, Guatemala. And he decided to get out of the car and began walking because he was tired and he just wanted to crash somewhere and sleep. Apparently, he was walking there, and then he saw many people on their facades, on the street, sort of hanging around. And well, there were many houses around there. He noticed that there was one house that has a sign outside that says for rent, and the door was half open. He thought nobody was there, so he entered the room, and he opened the door, and he like, perfect, nobody's here. I'm gonna crash somewhere. He just wanted to go and sleep. The owner of the place arrived and tell him, hey, hola, buenas tardes. And John Rexer stood up and like, hey, buenas tardes. What's going on? What's happened? And then the owner of the place like, so how you like my place? And then it's great. We can do a great spot over here. Live music, cigars, beers, mezcal, all cool. And apparently the owner of the place gave him 3 months of free rent. John Rexer said, I don't know how I did it. I don't know what's happened. And let's do it. Let's make it happen. The day after, John Rexer tried to call the suppliers in Guatemala to see who sells mezcal, and nobody did because mezcal wasn't that popular. And we're talking about the 1990s. Nobody knew about mezcal, so mezcal was merely a produce of Mexico drank by Mexicans. And what's happened then is that, well, he opened a bar. That bar is still on in La Antigua, Guatemala, called Café No Sé, which means Café I Don't Know. And he was smuggling the mezcal out of Mexico to Guatemala. And the stories of why it's called illegal is because of that. The way that he actually smuggled the mezcal in several occasions. One day, per se, he found a priest collar, and he crossed the border saying that he was a priest. And he got sort of asked too many questions at the border, but they caught him that he has so much mezcal, and then they just let him in, thinking that he was going to have a super cool party in his town, in his parish, I don't know. And after several times, several years smuggling the mezcal to his bar in Guatemala, he began sort of thinking to do things right. So he approached a family in the Mexican state where he kind of fall in love with mezcal, called Oaxaca. He met this family who was making very good mezcales. He approached them and said, can we do something together? They said yes. And he asked them about making a mezcal for him. and he always wanted to make something, a unique brand. So he asked them how he want the brand and all. So they began making the mezcal for him. And once they put it in the bottle and he gave the green light that that was the mezcal he wanted, they said, John, how do you want to call your mezcal? And he said, well, it was illegal for such a long time. Let's keep it illegal. And in reality, as a ethos, as a company, is a very cool company. They there is right now 3 families who are part owner of the brand. The agaves are only one type of agave that they use for this particular mezcal called Agave Is. They those agaves grow in only in Oaxaca for this particular mezcal. They cook the agaves under the ground. They do fermentation naturally, and when they cook the agaves, for example, they use a certified wood farmer. When they crush the agaves in a tahona, the big volcanic wheel, is pulled by mules or horses, and those mules and horses are treated well. They given shifts, and they work only a few hours per week. The processes are natural, and something particular about ilegal is that they also have reposado and añejo, like tequila, and that's very rare. That's not usual to see in mezcales. But mezcales are so artisanal that it took them. It was harder to them to produce than what was to produce tequila, because tequila already has machines, and the way of production is much kind of a, let's say, is less labor intensive, because obviously the distilleries have already adapted, while mezcales are artisanal, are still made by people from the very beginning, the same people. They don't have jimadores. Actually, the same producer will go and harvest the agave. So anyway, long story short, is the mezcal that you're tasting right now is añejo, which is around, again, 1 year and a half age. The mezcal, in this case, the mezcal was put in the barrel at about 50 alcohol per volume, aged for about 1 year and 6 months. And but the wood that we use, however, it is ex-bourbon barrel. In this case, we didn't approach a bourbon producer to give us a barrel, to sell us the barrel. In this case, they approach a cooperage, which is a company who buys the barrels from distilleries of either bourbon and American whiskeys, and then they sort of how do you say, they deassemble the barrels, clean them, and then they will build them again, following specifications of each brand. In this case, this mezcal does that. They go to the cooperage, and then they put their tequilas in ex-bourbon barrel, but the wood has been treated again to be almost like fresh. And that's it, really. The mezcal that you're tasting is one mezcal, one of a kind. It is loved by whiskey lovers particularly. We do sometimes a comparison between whiskey and mezcal, and this particular mezcal that you're tasting is, it's compared with some whiskeys, and people love it because of it. There was a smokiness, there was a sort of, let's say, the pittiness, but then with the aging, the pittiness sort of, it's almost like it gets sanded. It gets part of the whole liquid, and it's delicious. It's beautiful. It's elegant. It's not too smoky. It's 40 alcohol per volume only as well, and it's amazing. What do you think, Hannah?
I think it's lovely. When you say it's the type of mezcal that whiskey drinkers enjoy, I can really understand why. It's almost akin to kind of like, it reminds me of a bit like a Highland whiskey.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's got that, that kind of bite on it, but that really very smooth and velvety down the throat. It's and then it's definitely got that more kind of like caramelly note on it.
Yeah.
In comparison to the Tapatio, there's definitely a fresh sort of bit of like green element in the Tapatio that I think you don't necessarily get in the Legal. But because I like the normal illegal, the Hoven, or the Blanco. That's got this lovely, quite sort of sweet style smoke on it, a bit like the first Rumbas we had. But the smoke seems to have really pared back in this. But
yeah, something that sweetness. Everybody should know as well, that not because it's mezcal has to be smoky. Yes, a great part of the mezcales get cooked under the ground, because obviously remember that the ovens were introduced by Europeans. The sort of steam ovens were introduced by Europeans, and they were particularly in the central part of Mexico. In fact, central part of Mexico were producing first mezcales than even the south of Mexico. But yeah, things change, and now the south of Mexico, which is in this case Oaxaca, produce a lot of mezcales. And in fact, 95% of the mezcales that we get here in the UK come from only that state, which is Oaxaca. But Oaxaca is very big as well as a state, and it has so many different kinds of agaves. So really, I tried one from exactly the same state, and it might be even the same agave, and you will notice that it's totally different. So they are all wonderful and all. Just briefly, I'm gonna just kind of stop sharing my presentation, but I'll come back in a second. But just for people to know, these are the brands that we tried today, which is Ilegal, Mescal, Tequila Tapatio, Tequila Don Fulano, and the Rumbas. And here I just say thank you, but I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so I can see what's going on.
So yeah, it's been really nice to chat to you with them, because it's as we've gone through them, I've thought, oh, this one's my favorite, and then I'm like, oh wait, maybe this.
You grow and change, and now you don't know. Yeah.
I don't think I have a favorite. I don't think. I don't think I can pinpoint in them, because I think they're different. You'd have them for different occasions in a way. Yeah, I think like this. Illegal is something that you could sort of have at the end of the night as like a nightcap, or it's something you'd have over ice. Whereas, like the things like the Tapatio, I think are great for mixing or as a cocktail or sipping neat, or the Don Fulano, with it being the 100 proof as well, would be great in cocktails. But then they're all so different in their characters that it's quite difficult to say this one is my favorite in overall, I think.
Totally. I'm with you as well. It's like, for me, it's like if they're all my sons, no?
Yeah.
I love them all. They're all great. They're all different. And they, again, as you say, each for the climate, for before dinner, after dinner, during cocktail, cocktail, with a beer or no. Yeah, it's a huge, beautiful versatility as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's hopefully this has shown that there is so much you can do with agave spirits. It's not just one sort of straight line, and as hey, this is agave spirits is tequila, or agave spirits are really interesting, and
and there is much more, Hannah. Today, obviously, we concentrate in tequila versus or with mezcal, but there is so much to try. We have another mezcales from the Rumbas too that they taste more like an eau de vie, like almost like if somebody distilled the agaves in a way that it tastes like almost like a berry, like a kirsch, or like a grape eau de vie, or cherry eau de vie. Something delicious. So there is a lot for everybody.
And then I know we've tried in the past some raicilla as well, which is that's a whole nother goal part as well. It's a really interesting area of spirit that I think people are very familiar with, the idea of whiskey being a big area, and whiskey you can get from Scotland, and there's different parts of Scotland that give different tastes. You can get from all over the world, from Japan, America, India, etc. But tequila, I think, or mezcals and agaves, people sort of think as just one quite linear thing, which is a bit of a shame, because like you said, they're like great. It's like a great variety with wine. There's just so much choice out there. So it's been really nice to try them.
Thank you, and thank you for all that, all the time, and all the kind words as well. I appreciate it.
I think we've had quite a quiet audience, but I know what a lot of people are doing are like meeting up in small groups and then watching it together, who have bought sets and things. So if anyone does have any other questions after the stream, and I know a few people tend to watch it over the weekend as well, and with it being bank holiday, I think there'll be a few people enjoying it over the weekend as well. But if you do have any questions that pop up, please do let me know. You can just email them over at stormorboss@gmail.com, and we can answer them. I can pass them on to Gaby and get them answered. But yeah, it's been really lovely talking to you again, Gaby.
You too, my darling.
Enjoyed it, so lovely. Which one are you going to be drinking over the bank holiday?
Oh, I think it will be Tapatio, in between Tapatio and Fulano. I'm a tequila girl, so I'm from Guadalajara City. I grew up drinking tequila. I think today is this weekend will be tequila, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoy as well. So
thank you too.
So thank you everyone for watching. We'll probably end broadcast there because I think everybody's. Don't think we've had any other questions, which is good. But as I say, if you do have any other questions, do let us know, and we can always get them answered for you. And we're always happy to answer any questions as well. So yeah, well, have a lovely rest of your weekend as well, and nice to chat to you, Gaby. And
you too, my darling. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, everybody. See you later.
Bye.